Time to talk college football and set you up for week 4 with Josh Parcell. Join him on College Football Country. He's got a ton of interesting content there, not just the run-of-the-mill previews and predictions, but a lot of interesting takes on the game that we love. Let's look at the ACC, Josh, and my gut and my eyes tell me that this is right there with the SEC is the best conference in college football, but the results in terms of non-conference play, and I'm not talking Pitt, Oklahoma State, because that's an unfair match, but North Carolina State losing to South Carolina, Georgia Tech to Tennessee, and the like, didn't fare quite as well in the non-conference. But now we're in conference play. We've got some nice matchups coming up this weekend. We got BC at Clemson. What's odd here to me is that BC, one of the more astounding statistics from the weekend, gave up 515 rushing yards to Notre Dame. And people that aren't big ACC fans probably forget or don't consider that BC was the number one total defense and scoring defense in 2014 and 15 with an awful offense. So they were thrown in there constantly, and they had a great defense. So I don't know what's happened there necessarily. Harold Landry's still there, but Clemson tries to avoid the letdown at home. You've got Florida State finally on the field at home against NC State, and you've got Duke at North Carolina. Daniel Jones having a great 3 games, and they blew the doors off the Northwestern Wildcats a couple weekends ago, and North Carolina showing a little bit of life against a decent program in Old Dominion. Duke at North Carolina. So what do you got in the ACC this weekend?
So I think Clemson has a difficult game mentally going into that Boston College game. It's a sandwich between a trip to Louisville. I mean, really, you go back to the Auburn game. They get Auburn and Louisville back-to-back weeks. Then you throw this game in there in between now a trip to Blacksburg in a week, which all of a sudden is looming very large. A game, College game day is almost certainly going to be there, primetime game in Blacksburg. This is the type of game that you see a team come out and play pretty poorly. Having said that, Boston College is terrible. I don't think Clemson can play bad enough to lose this game, but I do think this is a game where you could look, all of a sudden it's halftime and Clemson's up 14-10. I mean, it's the type of game where you're just like, all right, they're sleepwalking through. So if Boston College could just have any sort of presence on the defensive side or offensive side for that matter, I think that they could actually give Clemson a challenge. I just don't know if they have enough horses to do it. But you mentioned Duke. I like this Duke team. I talked to David Cutcliffe before the season in Charlotte at ACC kickoff, and I asked him what went wrong last year, and he said, we just weren't mature. We didn't know how to handle adversity, and I could tell halfway through the season that we weren't going to be able to recover. And he said that they really made a point of emphasis this year to really try and grow the team's character, which is interesting to say at Duke because you feel like that would be one of the things that they would have a really, really strong, just a good mindset, and it would be a team that really it's the athletic side of things you got to work on, the size and speed at Duke. But Daniel Jones is a future NFL quarterback. He's probably the most naturally gifted quarterback Cutcliffe has had, Manning at Ole Miss. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for Duke this year to play spoiler in the Coastal Division. They're better than North Carolina. I mean, there's no question they are a better team than the Tar Heels, especially on the defensive side. It's going to be an interesting matchup because Daniel Jones is the best quarterback. It seems like North Carolina has settled in on Chaz Surratt finally under center for them, which I don't know what took Larry Fedora until week 3 to figure out that Brandon Harris was not the answer. So Surratt is the guy I think that has a ton of pressure on him. If they're the underdogs, Duke's the better team. We're going to find out if Surratt is good enough to really bring Carolina back to the forefront of the Coastal race.
Yeah, and about 15 attempts against Louisville there for a time. They were hanging in the game. It was a one-score game. Surratt looked good. Unfortunately, couldn't stay on the field for the entirety of the game, and obviously that one got away from them at home.